Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Trail Guide podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Krushevich, founder of Marketing Trail Guide and fractional chief marketing officer for companies running on the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS. In this first season, Opportunities in Crisis, I'm talking with business leaders and entrepreneurs about how to survive and thrive in times of uncertainty. This is episode 10, Using the Power of Video to Change the World, with Jeremy Gant, the founder and executive producer of 110 Pictures, a digital media company that seeks to advance churches, ministries, and causes through media. We discuss the new possibilities in the medium, how the impact of video will be viewed historically, and the power of videos in times of social movements. Jeremy is going to shed some light on big budget production versus low cost videos and answers the question, can you make a video go viral? Finally, we'll cover how video fits into the wider long-term marketing journey as a relationship-building tool and content format. So without further delay, here's my interview with Jeremy Gant. And I invited Jeremy on the show today because I think video is really important for all of us. Pre-COVID, it was important. Certainly during COVID, it's important. It's a medium for communication that's growing in its relevance. And you know, I guess it's silly to say that even at this point, because we all binge watch, you know, whatever our favorite thing is on YouTube or on Netflix or whatever it is. We understand the importance and relevance of video, but maybe up until recently, the last few years, it's been less accessible to the common business, maybe common nonprofit, because it's thought of as some huge production or something like that. So Jeremy, tell us a little bit about 110 Pictures. What do you guys do specifically? Who do you focus on? Yeah,
at 110 Pictures, we really focus on really churches, ministries, and causes. I mean, essentially nonprofits is our big focus. However, an organization is an organization. You know, we use a lot of the same communication techniques, a lot of the same kind of productions that you would for a business or another organization. You know, maybe some of the details to it are a little different, but at the end of the day, you know, you're communicating using visuals and using video. You know, I guess as a marketer, I tend to think of communication externally and certainly internally. Many people don't consider marketing an internal project, but certainly communicating within an organization, communicating the values, communicating what's happening, casting vision, all of those things, training people on all of those things is not purely an external pursuit, is it? No. It's and so I understand you're talking about like the business owner, like trying to get the communication via video. Yeah.
Well, I mean, typically you think of video and marketing as something, a message that you're portraying to, you know, an external audience so that they can hear about what you do and buy what you have, essentially.
Yeah.
But there's also internal customers and internal buyers as well for a for-profit or a nonprofit. Like, for instance, in a nonprofit, you've got volunteers. You've got a host of people that need to buy into your message and take action.
Yeah. And, you know, and depending on the size of your organization, that's one of the things I really love about video is that you can deliver a message once, like in a room, and you get whoever's in the room. But if you deliver it once in the room and there's a camera, I mean, the amount of people that can reach with that message is really unlimited. It's got infinite possibilities of who you can reach and what you can do with it. And not to mention what you can do with that content. Even if you were able to trim it down, you gave a long form message, but then you cut up little pieces. Hey, this part's pertinent to you. This part's pertinent to this audience or whoever you're trying to reach out with it.
So in general, before COVID, you know, kind of before we started facing this issue that we're now in the middle of, talk about the role of video in communicating kind of the core values, marketing, and training, both internally and externally, not just for profits, who I think is mostly our audience, but even for nonprofits. What are some of those initiatives? What are some of the reasons why that project even gets off the ground and some of the challenges?
Yeah, I think first of all, we've become more of a visually literate society.
Okay.
We'll start with that because for the longest, you know, our literacy was all about the printed word, reading, what you could type up. And then as time has gone on, we've seen that the visuals have become more and more important. And not only do they become more important, but they become more accessible. What it takes you to produce something, the gap between, say, Hollywood level production and then, Joe Schmo at home can do, it's really starting to shrink a lot.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that, so going to, that point on it is that there is, one of the things I do want to address on that is that what you're shooting with has become less and less important.
Okay.
I'm not going to necessarily say like, hey, you can do everything on an iPhone, but I think it's more important, the content and how you put it together. What we say in our industry is the craft has become very important. And so,
what does that mean?
So the craft means like how you do it. It's not what you do it with. So it's saying, how do I decide to, it's everything from the lighting it to the sound design of it, to the messaging, to the content, what you're saying in there. And so it's not to say that you shouldn't put some investment towards equipment and all that and go for it with that. But I think really what I found is that what's really important is in that message and find that core message in there. So, and of course, every film, every bit of script, everything that you see always starts with a script, starts with that word, starts putting it on paper, and then it gets transferred over to video. So, all to say, I think that what we've seen is that we've been able to translate all that written word. We've been able to translate all that over into visual communication, because that's how that's how people are taking it. People are spending so much more time on their phones, with social media, with whatever TV shows, whatever they're watching on YouTube or Netflix or what have you. And so if you as a business can then go take that language, that visual language, and harness it and use it for your business, you'll see I believe you could see some really explosive impact from that by harnessing that.
You brought up an interesting point about how for a period of time, and maybe we could even point back to the 1500s with the Gutenberg press, right? When the written word became more prolific, more ubiquitous, more available for people, and the common man, began now to interact with the written word in a more substantive way. Whereas prior to that, and for centuries and even millennia prior to that, many cultures lived in oral tradition, right? So we now have this kind of almost full circle. And I'm not going to ask you whether you think YouTube is as instrumental as the Gutenberg press, but maybe it is. Maybe it's shifted things just as significantly.
Yeah, I think YouTube is part of it. I'm not going to say it is the Gutenberg press, but I would say that YouTube and just your phone in your pocket and all that is in many ways does that same thing. It's brought us into a whole new realm of communication that we didn't have before.
So going back to the idea of production value, you said, what you're using doesn't necessarily matter a whole lot to in a qualified way. When do you decide to go big budget, big production value versus, iPhone with the selfie, in terms of how should you be thinking about that decision in terms of what you want to communicate and so forth?
Yeah. So one of the ways I look at it is it's not just, so there's that half of the thinking, like content is what's important. That's really what matters. However, there's this other half of it that I think is very important as well, which is what I say is the medium is the message. So in other words, how you come across on camera, how the production looks, how it's all done, that communicates too. We say Communications 101 says we're always communicating. So how things are lit, how the sound looks. If you go and you do all these great things, but the production quality doesn't match up to the quality of your message, what are most people going to do? They're going to click off it and go on. Well, his message isn't that great. Because the medium I'm looking at isn't that great. It's
almost like there's a certain expectation, and that there's the genre of the selfie, and then there's the genre of the big budget. And I don't know if there's, gradients in between, but it seems like if you're going to try to make it look good, it's got to look good. But if people get the sense that this is a selfie, there's a lot of grace and a lot of understanding that, this wasn't intended to be professional, and therefore it doesn't have to be. We have a different expectation.
Yeah, absolutely. Even like right now in our podcast, your audience can be more okay with us having like ums and oomph because they know it's a conversation, right?
Right.
But if I was giving something direct to camera and I was trying to give off a polished speech, that wouldn't fly, right?
Right.
At all. See, there's my And then, so with that though, is that you do need to know and be mindful of what you're intending to do with that production. The way I liken to it, I played baseball up through high school, only through high school. Wasn't that great, but I was a pitcher. And as a pitcher, I always knew there's a different pitch I had to pitch. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I throw a changeup, sometimes I throw a curve, sometimes I throw a knuckle, fastball. And it all depend on what I'm trying to accomplish with that batter. Sure. The same way as with your video. Mm-hmm. You gotta have everything in your arsenal. Mm-hmm. So you have those selfie videos in your arsenal. Mm-hmm. You have those medium range videos in your arsenal. And then you also have like that grand, amazing production that you have. What you need to learn is, when is it necessary for me to throw that as opposed to throw that?
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that in working with my clients, I'm keen to and aware of. You're posting content daily, weekly on YouTube. Production value doesn't have to be as high, for instance, as you land on a homepage of a website and this is your corporate video, and that's kind of a different sort of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so thinking about those different categories. Mm-hmm. So bring us now through COVID, and now we're in a very different. We don't know what normal even looks like at this point. It's just changing. We're now, everybody's on Zoom or some similar platform. We have this on-camera experience now. How do you see that changing the relationship with video in this current kind of real time? And then do you see any lasting changes in that regard?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think if anything, the light bulbs have gone on about the power of video mm-hmm. and what it really can do. I think we've known for a while what it can do. But I think we've seen that video is really transformative, it's a lot easier to do today because of the technology that we have, mm-hmm. the tools we have before us. I mean, if you think just 10, 12 years ago, if you want to do FaceTime or whatever they call it, iChat, I think it was video or whatever on your computer. If you want to do that, you'd have to get like a webcam.
Right.
Well, now every single computer has a webcam on it. Every single phone has a camera on it. You don't even have to add that kind of equipment to it. And I think as we're noticing and realizing that, hey, the tools in my pocket, the tools on my desktop, tools in my bag, that I can do this remotely. I think COVID really has taught us that there's a lot that we can do via video that maybe didn't have to be done in person. There's a lot of things that we can, a lot of reach that we can do. There's a lot of efficiencies you can bring in with video. Mm-hmm. You don't have to travel as much. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, you can serve what I alluded to earlier. You can give that talk once and then send it out multiple times.
Right.
You can do all these things, and it can become a real efficiency and time and even money saver for you as a business.
Mm-hmm. So there's this core competency, it feels like, that video, I mean, I guess, you can think of communications as a necessary core competency for any organization, for-profit, nonprofit. We need to be communicating externally about who we're for and what we do and the value that we bring, but also internally, volunteers, employees, staff. Communication is a value I think that people understand, and there's plenty of business books written on it and how to do it better and become better at it through different mechanisms. But it seems to me like video has become such a core medium now and an accessible medium, and yet we've all I'm just thinking about stuff I saw on YouTube this last week, getting into an officer speaking out in Washington State about his thoughts on the conduct of certain, speaking to his peers, and that, hey, we shouldn't be treating the population like this. He ended up getting fired for it and all this. And regardless of where you stand on all of this, now we have the power of viral in our pockets, potentially. Yeah. Do you ever have clients come to you and say, hey, can you make me a viral video? I mean, is that even a thing that can be done, or is that just sort of you throw something out to see what sticks and you're lucky if it goes viral?
Yeah, I mean, I've had that conversation, and really viral video, it can be a tricky thing. It's almost like saying, hey, can you make magic happen? Mm-hmm. Now there are some things that you can do that can make it more likely to be viral, mm-hmm. but you can never make a guarantee that will be viral.
Of course.
You have to have a little combination of the right message at the right time, mm-hmm. hitting the right people, mm-hmm. Which is marketing 101 anyway, right?
That's right.
Like you're trying to do all those right things.
Yep.
And it's just on a more explosive kind of level. And so if you really want to do a viral video, you want to do something that people are going to resonate with and they'll want to share. And that resonate, it can be a message. It can even just be, this is hilarious.
Sure.
We were talking about earlier, some videos that we've seen. The guy with the kid walking behind him during an interview.
Right.
And everything that his wife was doing to pull the kids back and everything.
The newscast. How
hilarious that was. And that's a viral video. Yep. Nobody intended to go in there with a viral.
That's right.
He didn't go in and sit down and go like, I'm going to make a viral video right now. It just happened.
Yep.
And sometimes that's the way it is. There's a viral video I really enjoyed just recently that came out, was with, I'm forgetting the name of the basketball player, but it was with Budweiser, and they did a Here's to 3, and it was this Dwayne Wade, I believe is his name.
Okay.
Basketball player. He's retiring. And what they did was a fully beautiful production where they brought in all these people. They talked about his end season. He was swapping his jersey with all these other basketball players. Well, at the end, they had all these different people that came up, and they gave him something that he had changed their life with, like somebody that he had helped pay for their college graduation, gave him their cap and gown. Even his own mom came in and gave like this thing. And it was just very emotional. It was very well crafted, very constructed. And that went viral as well. I mean, there's these kinds of videos out there. It can hit the whole gamut. Sure. It can be selfie like our police friend, right? Or it can be full production like that. And you just never know though. Sometimes they'll hit, sometimes it doesn't.
Yep.
It's just getting the right message to the right people.
Yep. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have more with Jeremy Gant.
From a very young age, I remember in 6th grade being taught in sex education that an abortion is just a woman's choice, and that's it. That's the only thing they teach you. It's not a baby. It's part of the woman's body, and she gets to decide whether it lives or dies. I grew up in Springfield, Massachusetts, in a very Catholic and supportive family.
My husband and I, Jerry, have 5 children. Veronica is the youngest. And I always told her, I know God has great plans for you. I had always told her that. In high school and even junior high, she had lots of struggles with anxiety and depression and problems in school.
I would just not want to get out of bed. I had no motivation to do schoolwork or be around family or friends. I kind of secluded myself in my room. It was Christmas Day of 2018. I was 16 years old. My boyfriend was 18 at the time. We had been dating for about 4 months. I felt that something was off with me, so I looked up some symptoms online and it was matching up with pregnancy. I went to the store to get the pregnancy tests, went home, I took one, and almost immediately the second line came up, which means that you're pregnant. I was just in disbelief at first. I was like, no way, I'm not pregnant, not me. A couple hours later, I took another one, and also was positive. I have a very close relationship with my mother, so I decided to tell her first. I went up to her and I showed her the tests, and she had already had a feeling that I was pregnant because I was acting differently than I usually do.
I was a little bit shocked, but I knew that I would support her. You definitely have always been pro-life, and I knew without a doubt I would never want Veronica to have an abortion.
My boyfriend told me he wanted me to have an abortion. His first reaction was just that he was very afraid. I understood where he was coming from because I was afraid as well. I knew that he wanted me to have an abortion, and I felt pressured to do so just because I didn't want to ruin his life or alter his life in a big way when it's not something that he wanted. I actually went down to Planned Parenthood. I was put in a room with this woman, and instead of her talking to me about my options or resources or different ways I could get help, it felt like she was a salesperson and she was trying to sell me on abortion. That just didn't sit right with me, and I knew that that wasn't the place I needed to be, and that's when I went home and did my own research. I searched on YouTube, what is an abortion, and I came across Live Action's video where the doctor describes in detail at each stage of pregnancy how the baby is killed. I just felt so upset and sad after I saw that video. I just cried. I knew if I hadn't found that video, that might have been my son who was being described in the abortion procedures, and I might have gone through with something without knowing what I was truly doing. I knew that he was a person, and that he was alive, and that killing him at any stage of life would be wrong.
The truth is powerful, And I'm so glad she came across that.
My boyfriend saw that video also, and it moved us both, and we knew that we couldn't do that. My baby was over 9 pounds, so I had to have a C-section. They brought me in, and it was about a 30-minute process. The moment I heard him cry, I was just like, I couldn't believe it, and I was so emotional because it felt like it was a blessing that he was there, and I could have almost taken his life away, and I was just so happy to hear his voice. That's a moment I'll never forget, and I just feel blessed to be his mom. I think a lot of women do choose abortion because they're afraid of the lack of support, and also I think they're just uneducated and not completely aware of what they're doing. Your pregnancy isn't just a blob of cells, it is a human being, and it deserves to live. Don't be afraid. There's so many resources out there that can help you if you are pregnant. I had my boyfriend there with me. He's been a great dad. He's really stepped up. I've been helped by people who I didn't even know existed. I'm really thankful that I found that video and that I found the resources I did and that I have my son. He really saved my life.
Welcome back to the Marketing Trail Guide podcast. I have Jeremy Gant from 110 Pictures with me, and we've been discussing the relationship that we have with video. And it's been a changing relationship over time. And certainly with COVID, that's continued. And we started at the tail end of the last segment talking about viral videos. And I guess everybody wants to sort of reverse engineer it and figure out the components. And I have a saying, even though I'm in marketing, I say marketers ruin everything. And that's our job. And so, we bounce around from social media property to property, destroying them with ads. That's what we do. But I guess what's interesting to me about that conversation is to try to dig into what's really resonating with people. You talked about right message, right person, right time. Certainly, we're in an interesting. There's an interesting cultural zeitgeist right now. I remember several weeks ago, John Krasinski doing this grad night thing, right? Because and it was wildly successful. And everybody, what is he tapping into there? He's tapping into this feeling that there's a tremendous sense of loss for high school seniors. I drove by my alma mater here the other day and saw the chain link fence filled up with the high schools, the portraits of the seniors, right? And we're honoring you because for high school seniors or college seniors for that matter, it's been a pretty different experience in the second half of their senior year than they expected. Yeah. And so John Krasinski's tapping into something that, there's a need here. So he did a good job of putting his ear to the floor and realizing if there's something I can grab a hold of and provide for people, it's going to be well received. It's going to be popular. And there was something so, thirst quenching about it, I think, for people. I didn't watch it, but I saw some of the reaction. What are some of the other components of that virality of, how do we pay attention to the zeitgeist?
Yeah. One of the things, I need to add to all that is that if you have an attempt, you want to do something that's viral, I would really encourage you that you really make sure that it's something that fits into the core of your organization. That's something that harkens back to what your organization's all about.
Core values.
Yeah, and all your core values. Yeah. You don't have to overthink it, but you have a, you have a viral video of somebody baking a cake and you're a car business. What does that have to do with you?
Not so much. Yep.
So, it needs to be something that comes from within, something that comes from the values within your business. That is something that is definitely, you have to hit there, but it also doesn't have to be so on the nose. It doesn't have to be so this is exactly right down our alley. This is exactly what our business is about. It can be about, maybe talking about the needs that your business addresses, like for instance, the real estate market. Honestly, if you were to talk about that with everyday Joe about real estate, it could probably come across pretty boring. Just throwing out there the numbers, how's it going here, real estate's doing that. But if you talk about the home experience. You talk about the heart issues. You talk about how
family,
a home brings your family together. I mean, even this COVID-19 crisis, hey, you want to be someplace you want to be, right?
Right.
So maybe that's an angle you take. You're like, hey, I'm a realtor, and right now, maybe during this pandemic, you're not in the place that you've realized this is the place I need to be. Let me help you get to the place you want to be right now.
Yeah, that's such a great perspective.
You tap into those kinds of things, and you look for the heart within it, and it is going to find that need. It's also having your ears to the ground, like you're saying, and seeing, hey, what are people needing right now? What is the experience right now? I mean, and it's really being just open ears, kind of a person.
I think what comes up for me in that is that you really have to be there to serve. You really have to understand clearly who you're for. And we look at kind of product design, we think about who's this for and what's it for. And those are kind of the first primary questions. And oftentimes the who's it for becomes the North Star. And that we might provide as a product or service any number of items that are going to help this who, and we're going to monetize those products. But I think what we're talking about now in this context is creating a product that's free. A production literally is a product, right? And whether you monetize it or not, that's a different story. But you're creating something of value for a particular audience, and so getting really falling in love with that audience, even if I could put it in those terms of like, I really have a heart, to use that word, for this group of people. For your example, homeowners who just feel stuck in their home and that they're not enjoying where they live. They go and they leave and they go to work, but when they come home, it doesn't feel like home. And so like that's a problem I want to solve. And so I'm going to go help them solve that. And they may there may be a decision, or there may be a case for, providing something else, something that's, maybe a second or third tier type of a product, whether it's monetized or not, for that same audience that really is not necessarily part of the what that we provide, but kind of going back to Simon Sinek's idea of you start with why, it resolves some of that why for them, because that's the group of people that you're for.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think, the best businesses, I believe, are the ones that really do start with the, how can I serve? I do a lot of work with nonprofits, but honestly, some of the most charitable or some of the most impacting, I should say, organizations are for-profit businesses that are run right, that really are seeing that need. And honestly, those are ones that find success. A lot of times businesses get a rap for being just all about the money and the dollars. And yes, those are important. Right. Absolutely important. Don't get me wrong. But the businesses that don't start at the dollars, but start at the service are the ones that really do well, really do explode.
Yeah. And I think that there's some great examples out there. A previous podcast guest, Charles Antis from Antis Roofing, I think is in Orange County, really helping to lead the way. All you got to do is open up the Orange County Business Journal and look at their philanthropy and what's going on. And I think a lot of business owners understand their corporate social responsibility and are pursuing that. So I want to kind of shift gears here. I guess I asked my guests this question, in terms of making predictions about, what are some of the permanent changes you see, and what are the temporary ones? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. I really think that some of the permanent changes is, just looking from my own mindset, my own industry, is I think the need and desire for video is going to go up. And I say that from a consumer and from a business standpoint.
So things open up, we're still going to be using a lot of video.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't meet in person anymore. It doesn't mean that at all. But I think what we're going to find out is let me give you an example. So oftentimes whenever I get approached by an organization, they want to do something that's for an event, let's say. And they say, hey, we want to do a video for this event. And I'll walk through it with them. And I always ask this question, it's like, what is a video going to do for you that you can't do just live in the room? And if it's like, oh yeah, we just want to talk about some stats. Well, throw together a slide and talk about it.
Okay.
You don't need a video for that.
Okay.
But if it really is to show things that you can't show in the room, you know, wherever it is where we're working, showing some stories of people or what have you, then yes, absolutely, let's do that. And so with that example, I think we're going to see that people are going to start to realize you're going to become more sophisticated with video. You're going to see like, okay, this is where we really need to use video, where video can really help us. And this is where doing it in person or doing it another way, an email, written, what have you, is going to really help nail it for us. I think that's going to be, you know, just looking for my industry, that's going to be something I'm going to see really come through. I think also, I think everybody is getting an opportunity to really take, just on a personal side, take a look in the mirror, take a look at their relationships, take a look at people around them. And I think that we're going to see, as funny as it sounds, I think we're going to see even more heart come out of this. We're going to see people with more heart for giving, more heart for their fellow man, really. I think that this has been, I mean, this whole thing is reminding me way back at 9/11. Like it's been a lot of the same emotional kind of feelings and things, but also sort of a weird positive uptick of togetherness as well.
Sure. Yeah. Bipartisanship for sure.
Yeah. Bipartisanship. Yeah. I mean, yeah, let's not get into politics.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you have people willing to agree on things that maybe wouldn't agree on things before.
Sure.
So I think that there's a real opportunity here for some real, on that note, some real neat collaborations. They'll also see maybe organizations that probably want to work together, working together.
So that kind of gets us into some opportunities, right? And the season is opportunities in crisis.
Yeah.
Previous guests have been really different in terms of some are in startups, some are investors, some are business owners and established businesses. And one of the concepts we've talked about with a variety of the guests has been this idea that there is opportunity out there. If you're surfing the break over here and all of a sudden now the opportunity zone has changed, you got to paddle out to where the break is now. And I think for some established businesses, that's hard because, we can get stuck in our ways and we have to make that mental shift. But just because it's not breaking where I happen to be hanging out on my board doesn't mean it's not breaking over there. And so I got to move the boat. I got to move the surfboard over to and the whole organization to where it's breaking. Are you seeing any of those opportunities in terms of the nonprofits you're working with or companies that are supporting them or even yourself as a business owner?
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely just going back to the video, creating platforms, your own online platform, if you've got the content.
What does that mean, a platform?
So a platform would be something like you have a place where you keep all your video production in. So it's, and then it's accessible via like an app on your phone or an app on like Apple TV or Roku or what have you.
Okay.
Essentially creating your own channel. Now that is more cost intensive to do, but if you're an organization that thrives on content, that's something to really look at. Because I've been seeing this happening more and more. I mean, even to like workouts, like there's like the Beachbody, all that stuff. They got the apps out there and I get all the ads all the time. Hey, you get all the workouts you want. You can get, it's not just lean back entertainment that you can get. There's stuff lean forward that gets you active, gets you thinking. And, one organization in particular that I've been working with, we've been helping them build that and get all their content up onto this. Now, granted, you got to have content to put up there.
Sure.
But if you're in that business, I think that is definitely a great direction to start looking at of how you can build that, because you can also, there's all the ways you can monetize it. There's, you could do free to play, you could do subscriptions, you can do all these different ways now of getting that content out there.
So, going back, maybe 10 plus years in the marketing world, this idea of content marketing started to come up. And the idea with content, or sometimes, HubSpot calls it inbound marketing. But the idea is that we're helping educate people how to buy. We're helping to create a sense of belonging and a following before there's even a purchase. And maybe we're starting with a smaller dollar value purchase and nurturing people into greater and greater stakeholder, right? So they might start up buying a $47 product and, 18 months later buy a $4,700 product because we have that journey. And a lot of that productization is content. You've got platforms like Kajabi, right, where it's a video hosting and a learning management system kind of all in one, where we're monetizing knowledge, right? You've got Masterclass, you've got LinkedIn Learning, formerly known as lynda.com, and you have, YouTube for free. And so one of the things that I coach my clients on is helping them understand that before you ask for the sale, there's a lot of work to do.
Oh, yeah.
And gone are the days where cold calling or cold emailing, direct response are, predictably effective. People are used to getting a lot of value for free.
Yep.
And so a comprehensive marketing strategy, which includes monetized products, also must be inclusive of free-to-play or freemium products, right? And SaaS products have gotten us used to this, where there's a free trial or there's a freemium product where you hit a paywall at some point, right? And but by then you've received enough value where it's like, this sells itself. Yeah. Of course I want to subscribe to this. And so brands that aren't thinking about the entire journey, they're not thinking about how do we add value, how do we get people so in love with us before they've even paid us for anything, are actually going to be at a disadvantage, because there's a whole industry of your peers and competitors that are potentially taking that strategy. And so the early adopters 10 years ago were, they had the most skin in the game, and it paid off, and that curve starts to, go like this. But now if you're a late adopter, you're starting to now even struggle. And I see struggle with, it's just table stakes to have a content strategy, and how do I learn more about you from the anonymously from my computer, from my couch, before I ever want to do business with you. And that's certainly what a podcast and long form content's about. And like you said, repurposing long form content and chunking it down into more digestible breadcrumbs that people can follow to get to know you before they spend that money with you.
Yeah. No, I've seen a lot of value in, going back to the free stuff. If you really are looking to know, what your potential clients are wanting, you make videos that answer a question that they might be asking a lot. Mm-hmm. You ask this question and then you give an answer to it, post it to YouTube. YouTube's free to play. Like
free platform, right? Yep.
So absolutely free platform. Yep. One of the largest search engines in the world. Mm-hmm. Throw it up there. I mean, I'm looking on YouTube constantly to learn something, whether it's professionally or around the house or whatever. Sure. I mean, I'm sure you have as well.
Sure.
How do I do this? How do I do that? And
that's actually one of the first things I ask people when especially my family or my kids, my wife, like, did you YouTube it first?
Exactly.
How do you do this? And I told my wife this the other day. Everything I've learned, I've learned from YouTube.
Exactly.
You can do it too. And it takes time, right? And you got to dig into it, but whatever, it's out there.
And I've seen plumbers. I mean, it's not like we're talking about like, you have to be multi-million corporation doing this. I see these one-man job plumbers with their iPhones doing it. Sometimes that's enough. I mean, going back to the, our medium is a message, okay, sometimes, you do have to weigh it out a little bit, but if they answer my question, I'll watch their video.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
If they answer it enough, I'll subscribe.
So that's kind of this value first value, right? And I think as a marketer, I just think that that's table stakes at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and let me add one more thing to that. So this ties all into it is, I feel like for me personally, as my business, my number one commodity I have, it's not my video production, it's not our skills or anything like that. It's our trust. Do clients trust me? Mm-hmm. Do they trust our business? Yeah. Do they trust us? And when you go and you do something on YouTube and you're answering people's questions, you're building that trust.
Authority, yep.
You're telling them, you can trust me for this. So when come the day that they are ready to say, hey, I'm ready to throw a few bucks towards whatever it is you're offering.
Right.
Well, I trust this guy. He's been telling me how to do this for a long time.
Yep. Yep. And it goes back to that old axiom. People do business with people they know, they like, and they trust.
Yep.
And,
exactly.
Maybe that'll be the title of this episode as I search for that usually by the end of it. But let's just kind of wind down here, Jeremy, and I've enjoyed talking with you. But tell me about, what are you having the most fun with right now in COVID country, and how's that kind of informing your life as a business owner, as a family man?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can take it two ways. One, I'll just start, since you mentioned the family man stuff, like on the personal side, it's more time with the family, and it's been rich. I mean, going back to find the opportunities, just find the opportunities in the relationships. Find the opportunities with my wife, with my kids, to connect at whole new levels. I have found it's just been invaluable. And, I'm somebody that's
you
always...
found your limits? Have you run into any limits?
Well, I'm here, right?
Yeah, okay. You're not with them right now. Yeah.
They're not here, are they? No, just kidding. But no, I've really enjoyed that side of it, and I do want to say that that's very important. And sometimes it gets really overlooked, but being healthy emotionally, spiritually, relationally, really will feed you into being healthy in your business, healthy in your business relationships as well. So if you start right there at the core, that's always that's a big thing in the workout world, is getting your core tight. Right. You get your core and your relationships right. Yeah. Everything else is going to come together a lot smoother for you. Yeah. So I'll say that right now. If you're struggling in your relationships, take some time right now to invest in those. Yeah, absolutely.
Before you move on to your second point, I just want to piggyback on that, because I think that's really, really true. I made the statement earlier, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. They do business with people.
Yes.
People.
Absolutely.
They know, like, and trust. Not corporations, not robots, not businesses, people. And I think, one of the things that I'm hearing a lot about is how to make our companies more human. How do you give people a customer experience of, I just had a human interaction, and we are so thirsty for genuine human interaction right now. And so you said basically get the core right, and it'll sort of trickle down into your business. That is so true. People have to see your humanity if they're going to do business with you, unless you're just selling commodities for the lowest price, in which case you better be the low price leader. Yeah. But if you have any kind of relational sale, any relationship business, beyond, a commodity, you have to give from the first time a customer sees you to what it's like to do business with you, that you care about them. And then you really have to ask yourself, do I care about my customers? Right? Yeah, like, that's not necessarily a foregone conclusion. Absolutely, yeah. Are they just a means to an end for me? Right? And you got to deal with that. Like, is my heart in the right place? Do I view myself, my business, and as an extension of myself to help people serve first? Yeah. And you got to confront whether that's true or not. And if you find that it's not true, got to wrestle with that. Like, okay, I really have to get my priorities straight. There's got to be this human, mutual, relational exchange of value, rather than just, how can I twist your arm to work with me? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the experience working with you as a human being, is good, I might even be willing to pay a little bit more for your service, right? Because you at least see me. You cannot underestimate the intangibles in that, and that the relationships. I always, if you can't get your relationships right, you can't get life right. Bottom line.
That's right. You're going to make a second point before I cut you off.
Oh no, I was just going to say, as far as fun working with things, I've really been enjoying, I alluded to this a little bit, I've been enjoying, like, not just building the individual content pieces, but building out channels, building out all these different pieces, like
pulling it all together.
Yeah, like the platform, bringing together a platform that, we've been doing with, I'll just say the ministry, Every Man Ministries, or even doing some of the YouTube channel builds that we've been doing. Like, that's been fun for me, because it's putting all those jigsaw pieces together. And get it all right, make sure it's all flowing. It's getting a little bit in your territory, but still, just
it's the last
seeing
mile.
It all going. That's been a lot of fun.
Because you
lot of
normally are in that content creation. You shoot something, you edit it, you ship it, but maybe you're one level removed from
it's
where
up to
it hits
you.
people, right?
Yeah.
But I would imagine that's gratifying because it's like you're building that last mile, and you get a little bit more of that firsthand experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of joy in that. I mean, for years, ever since I've been in this, one of my favorite things to do once I'm done with the production and it ships is if I can be in the room where it airs, like if it's an event or be with somebody, it's just great. Just seeing, like watching your kids grow up and go seeing them succeed in the world. It's like the same thing. I've nurtured this thing and seeing it go to life.
Baby.
Yeah, my baby.
Don't call my baby ugly. That's fine. Yeah, it's just, I get it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. The last question here is, kind of what parting thoughts can you give business owners in tough times, regardless of their industry, and then how can people learn more about you? Yeah.
So the big thing that I'd say is I was thinking about the illustration you gave. If it's not breaking here, then you got to paddle over to where it is breaking. Well, sometimes that might even be an opportunity for you to say, well, surfboards aren't working here. Maybe we need to pull out the rowboats. What is it in your industry? What is it that maybe there's not a demand for something specific that you do, but you realize that there's something on the side that does work. There's something else that we do that can help. I heard anecdotally a story of there was way back, like turn of the century, there was a guy that had a paint company and he couldn't sell the paint, trying to figure out how to sell it, couldn't figure out how to sell it. And then one day he realized how he could sell it, and he ended up selling tons of paint. You know what he did? He basically invented the striping of roads, and he started selling paint for striping all the roads. And so sometimes you got to think out of the box. Nobody would have thought, I mean, we think about it now, but way back when, who would have thought to put paint on the road?
Yeah.
And there might be something that you have that you've got to go and say, hey, it's not being done. What I do isn't being applied this way, but maybe this could help. Doing something like that. So
love it. Love it. Jeremy, thank you so much.
Yeah.
How can people learn more about 110 Pictures?
Yeah, you could go to our website, 110pictures.com. And that's spelled out ONETEN pictures.com. And definitely can learn some more about us there.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kev.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Marketing Trail Guide podcast. Next time, I'll be talking with Quinn Tabor, the CEO of virtual reality language learning company Immerse. We'll discuss his search for product market fit, how every company is really a startup right now, and considerations for a pivot. If you found this episode valuable, please give us a 5-star review and hit the subscribe button for more on how to find and benefit from opportunities in crisis. You can find the notes for this week's episode, plus all of our existing episodes and much more content at marketingtrailguide.com.